If you can look at the first question, 5 alternators each rated 5 MVA, 13.2 kV with 25% of reactance on its own base are connected in parallel to a bus bar. The short circuit MVA level at the bus bar is. Okay. So in the question he has given that the 5 alternators are connected in parallel. If we directly draw the per unit diagram for them, so how we can draw this one? This is the per unit reactance of the one alternator. This is grounded. So to this bus bar, such 5 alternators are connected in parallel. Okay. So now, what is the per unit voltage? The per unit voltage will become 1 at an angle 0, and he has given the percentage reactance of 25%. So per unit reactance will become how much? It will become percentage reactance divided by 100. Percentage reactance divided by 100. Understand? So 0.25. Understand? Since they are connected in parallel equivalently, how you can treat this impedance diagram? If you remember your circuit theory, then when identical sources are connected in parallel, okay, you can keep the voltage source and all the impedances in parallel. So it will equivalently become 5 reactances which are connected in parallel which are subjected to a 1 voltage source. So this is the bus bar. It will become how much? If you Theveninize this one, it will simply boils down to and this is the bus bar. So J 0.05 per unit, 1 at an angle 0. Understand? So this is the fault point or the bus bar. So if you short circuit this one, the fault current would flow in this path. So this is the path of the fault current when a 3-phase symmetrical fault occurs at the bus bar. Understand? So the per unit fault current will become how much? 1 at an angle 0 divided by J 0.05. So if you only consider the magnitude, or if you directly write it, it becomes J minus J20 per unit minus J20 per unit. So this is the per unit fault current. Okay. So he is not asking the fault current, he is asking the short circuit MVA level. So if you recollect our formula, short circuit MVA for any fault is given by IF per unit into base MVA. So your fault current per unit value is 20, magnitude only if I am considering, and the base MVA, since only 1 MVA rating of each machine is mentioned, so we can directly take 5 MVA as our base MVA. So the short circuit MVA level at the bus is 100 MVA. 100 MVA is the option. Okay, so here 5 alternators of 5 MVA and 13.2 kV with 25% reactances are connected in parallel. Okay, and he's asking you to select the base value as the machine ratings only, because he's mentioned the word on its own base. They are connected in parallel. So if a short circuit occurs, if a 3-phase short circuit occurs at that bus bar, then what is the short circuit MVA? Usually the short circuit MVA is calculated only for the 3-phase fault, because it is the most severe fault. The highest short circuit level you will obtain only for the 3-phase fault. So whenever he is asking you to compute the short circuit MVA, you have to simulate a 3-phase fault. Understand? So at the bus bar where 5 alternators are connected, we have assumed that a 3-phase short circuit fault occurred. And we have computed the per unit fault current first, then followed by the short circuit MVA. Understand? So next, this is the question. Basically, it is a circuits question, but I thought we can discuss. In this question, what he has given, the voltage and current through a single phase load is mentioned here. He is asking what is the average power consumed by the load. Across a single phase source, you have connected a load, and he has given the voltage across this load is V of t. Current through this load is I of t. Understand? Then he is asking you to compute the average power consumed by the load. Understood? He has directly given the equations in time domain. Okay, first you have to either you can convert directly into phasor domain or you can directly solve it in the time domain. But few things you have to make sure. It is the minus V of t is minus 170 into sine of 377t minus 30 degrees. I am writing it in degrees, so many volt. Okay, I of t is equals to 8 cos 377t plus pi by 6. Gentlemen, the formula for average power in a single phase circuit is given by P average is equals to Vrms into Irms into cosine of the angle between the voltage and current, cosine of the angle between them. But for this formula to be applicable, you have to make sure few things are intact. The first thing is that the amplitudes of both signals should be either positive or negative. The amplitude, sorry, the polarity of the amplitude. Understand? Here, if you can observe what is the polarity of the voltage signal, it is negative. The polarity of the current signal is positive. First thing is you have to convert both of them either into positive, either into negative. That is the first thing you have to ensure. The second thing which you have to ensure is that both the signals should be in the same waveform. That means both of them can be either sine or both of them can be either cos. Usually we prefer cosine. Why? Because cosine is the reference. Cosine-soidal wave is the reference. Understand? The third important thing which you have to ensure is the frequency of both signals. Omega, angular frequency of both signals should be same. Here in the question, fortunately, the frequency is same. Omega value for both the signals, omega t, omega value is 377 radians per second. Omega for both the signals is 377 radians per second. It is same. But here we have to make sure that both the signals have same polarity as well as the same nature of waveform. So first step is we have to convert them into that. So I can write the first signal as V of t is equals to, I want to put this negative term into this one, sine 180 plus theta. Sine pi plus theta is how much? Minus sine theta. Minus sine theta. So if I add 180 to this first signal, what you are going to get? It is going to become 170 into sine of 377t plus 180 minus 30. Plus 180 minus 30. So many volt. Understand? The second thing is this for I of t, I will convert this into sine. So to convert cos signal into sine, you simply have to add 90 degrees. You simply have to add 90 degrees. So 8 sine of 377t plus 90 plus again pi by 6, I am writing it as 30. Understand? So now if you can simplify how I can write the first signal, V of t will become 170 sine 377t plus 150 degree, so many volt. Second signal will become how much? 8 sine 377t plus 120 degrees, so many ampere. Okay, Now you can directly apply in this formula, but you have to make sure that this 170 and 8 are the peak values. They are not RMS values. They are peak values. You know, it is very simple to convert the peak value into RMS value for sine and cos signals. What is that? We have to divide by root 2. So your P average will become how much in this case? 170 divided by root 2, which is RMS value of the voltage. 8 divided by root 2, which is the RMS value of current. And what is the angle difference between the current and voltage signal? It is 30. Either plus 30 or minus 30, it doesn't matter, because cos of minus theta is also cos theta. So directly you can write the angle difference between these two signals is 30. So this would become your answer. This would become your answer. So your answer will become 588.89 watt. This is your average power. Understood? So gentlemen, here the solution is not important. The concept which you have to learn is that when you are treating two signals, you have to ensure that their polarity is same, their frequency is same, and the nature of waveform is same. Then only you can directly apply into the any power formula. Okay, even while comparing the phase angles also, you have to ensure all these three conditions are intact. So the next question is, a 30 kV 50 hertz 50 MVA generator has positive, negative and zero sequence reactances of 0.25 per unit. So the nomenclature which we have used in our lectures is the positive sequence of generator, we have designated it as ZG1, which is here in this case is 0.25 per unit, and the negative sequence impedance is ZG2, which here is 0.15 per unit, and the zero sequence impedance of the generator ZG0 is 0.05. Understand? Now what is telling, the alternator neutral is grounded with a reactance. Let us call that neutral reactance as Zn. Okay, and we have to find out this neutral grounding reactance value such that the bolted LG fault, bolted LG means whenever the term bolted comes, it means it is a dead short circuit. It is a dead short circuit. Okay, so the fault current for a bolted LG fault and a bolted three-phase fault at the generator terminals are equal. That is the question. That means there is no fault impedance. The ZF fault impedance is 0. Fault impedance is 0. That is the question he has given. Okay. Now, what is the formula for fault current for a three-phase short circuit fault? If you recollect the formula, it is 1 at an angle 0 divided by ZG1 only. It is the formula for the per unit fault current when a three-phase short circuit fault occurs. 1 at an angle 0 divided by only positive sequence impedance. The second point is, what is the per unit fault current when a single phase, when a LG fault occurs? It is 3 into 1 at an angle 0 divided by ZG1 plus ZG2 plus Z0 plus Z0. Sir, what is Z0? Z0 is the overall zero sequence impedance seen by the fault. So Z0 value, if you recollect, we have explained it as Z0 is equals to ZG0 plus 3 times Zn plus Zf. Here Z0 is the overall zero sequence impedance seen by the fault, which is given by Zg0 plus 3 times Zn plus Zf. Understand? So what he is telling, you have to compute Zn value such that both these fault currents are equal. That is this equation 1, the value of equation 1 and equation 2 are same. Understand? So here, if you can equate these two, what you're going to get? 1 divided by Zg1 is equals to 3 divided by Zg1 plus Zg2 And what is Z naught value? Zg naught plus 3Zn. Why here? Since ZF value, it is a bolted fault, the fault impedance is 0. Okay, so if you can cross multiply, what you're going to get? Zg1 plus Zg2 plus Zg0 plus 3Zn is equals to 3 times Zg1. So if you substitute the values now, here we know the Zg1 value is 0.25, 0.15 and 0.005. If you substitute these values here, we're going to get 0.25 plus 0.15 plus 0.05 plus 3 times Zn is equals to 3 into 0.75. Sorry, 0.25. Okay. So from this, what you're going to get? You're going to get 0.2 plus 3Zn is equals to 0.5. So your Zn value will become 0.3 divided by 3, that is 0.1 per unit. 0.1 per unit. That is the per unit neutral grounding impedance that you have to connect. But he did not ask the value in per unit. He asked the value in direct value. So you have to multiply this per unit value with the Z base. With the Z base. So what is the formula for Z base? Z base is given by voltage base square divided by MVA base. VB square by S base. So this value when multiply with what is the voltage base in this question? 30 kV is the voltage and 50 MVA is the this one. So if you directly substitute those values, 30 square divided by 50, so you're going to get how much? 1.8. 1.8 or answer. So your neutral grounding impedance or reactance value is 1.8. Since it is reactance, you can keep J. So Zn will become J 1.8 ohm. If you have asked Xn directly, you can put 1.8 ohm. So since you only asked the ohmic value of reactance, your answer should be 1.80. Wait, rounded off to single decimal. 1.8 is the answer. So any doubt in this question? Gentlemen, don't go by the shortcuts. Here the testing point is, had these two been same, had Zg1 is equals to Zg2, someone would have directly given a formula. Zn will become Zg1 minus Zg0 divided by 3 would have been the formula. But don't blindly go by the formulas, because in this case the positive sequence and negative sequence impedance values are same. Then you will be in trouble if you directly apply this formula. It is GATE 2020 question. So a cylindrical rotor synchronous generator has a steady state synchronous reactance of 0.7 per unit and subtransient reactance of 0.2 per unit. Please someone mute yourself. And JXD double dash value is J 0.2 per unit. That is the data he has given. Okay. So, and the internal EMF, if you draw the synchronous generator, this is the reactance. So this is the terminal voltage VT. Okay. So this is the rest of the circuit, which has some load and everything. So here is mentioning this is induced EMF EG and this is J 0.7 in steady state, and this is the terminal voltage, which is 1 at an angle 0. Okay. So if you calculate the induced EMF in the alternator under normal conditions, induced EMF value has already given. This EG value is 1 plus J 0.7 volt. Okay. So EG value is 1 plus J 0.7 volt per unit value. So many per unit. And terminal voltage is 1 per unit, and the reactance value JXT value is J0.7. Then how much current is flowing? What is the pre-fault current? Pre-fault current, the current flowing through the alternator before fault, pre-fault current, let us call this pre-fault current as I naught. Its value is given by Eg minus terminal voltage divided by the reactance, that is JXT, impedance. So if you compute this value, you're going to get 1 plus J0.7 is the induced EMF minus terminal voltage is 1 divided by the reactance value is impedance value is J0.7. So its value will become again 1 per unit. So pre-fault current flowing through the machine is 1 per unit. Now what he's asking you the subtransient induced EMF. So again, if you go through the lectures, subtransient induced EMF is Eg double dash. Eg double dash is given by terminal voltage plus JXD double dash into pre-fault current. This is the subtransient EMF. So this value will become, terminal voltage is 1, J 0.7 into 1. J 0.7 into, sorry, this is J 0.2, I'm sorry. Subtransient induced EMF is J 0.2 into this one. So this is the subtransient induced EMF. So this value will become 1 plus J 0.2. So if you compute the magnitude only, 1 plus J 0.2 magnitude, how much? So this value will be 1.019, so many per unit. This is the subtransient induced EMF when a three-phase short circuit fault occurs. If they want transient, suppose had they asked the transient one, again the equation would have become Vt plus Jxd dash into I naught. So steady state, obviously you know, this is Vt plus Jxd into I naught. From that only we have derived the pre-fault current. So this is the subtransient induced EMF. If you are not able to correlate the philosophy, just remember this formula. So Eg double dash, you simply have to substitute the subtransient reactance. Eg dash, you have to substitute the transient reactance. And in steady state, you have to substitute the steady state reactance. Okay. Typical question. A three-phase to ground fault, that means a symmetrical short circuit fault, three-phase short circuit fault is occurring at the locations F1 and F2 in the system as shown in the figure. If the fault takes place at location F1, then voltage and current at bus A, the voltage and current at bus A are VF1 and IF1 respectively. If the fault takes place at location F2, then voltage and current at bus A are VF2 and IF2 respectively. Okay. The correct statement about the voltage and currents during the faults at F1 and F2 is, it appears to be a very simple question, but it is really testing question. You have to understand the philosophy here. Here he has mentioned the current flowing through the bus A is IF1 within this direction. He has even mentioned the direction. See, any current definition is complete once you define its magnitude and direction. If you simply say current IF1 is flowing at bus A without specifying direction, then the description is incomplete. For any current description, you should describe the magnitude as well as direction. Okay. Similarly, for any voltage description, you have to mention the magnitude as well as polarity. Okay. So he has clearly mentioned the direction of IF1 and IF2 in the arrow mark direction, and the values are IF1 and IF2. The magnitudes are IF1 and IF2. Okay, the voltages are VF1 and VF2, where obviously the positive polarity will be at the bus bar, negative polarity will be, or the reference polarity will be at the ground. Okay, now let us assume fault is initially occurring at F2. A three-phase short circuit is occurring at F2. Okay, now you tell me how the fault current will flow. The current from this source one, let us call this as the first source, the current will flow like this. So this source one will contribute a current whose direction is like this. Next, source 2 will contribute the current whose direction is like this. Understand? So now both the currents, there are two different currents that are contributing to the total fault current. One current is flowing from source 1, the other current is flowing from source 2. Okay, we are not bothered about what is the current flowing from source 2. We are only interested how much current is flowing through the source 1, that too especially through the bus bar A. The first important point is all the fault currents are inductive in nature. All the fault currents are inductive in nature. That means what? Current lags voltage by approximately 90 degrees. Approximately 90 degrees. So how you can write now? Suppose let us call this current as, let me call this current as IA. Okay. And this voltage is EA. If I draw the phasor diagram, what I am going to get? If suppose this is a zero axis, EA at an angle delta will be like this. EA, and this is an angle delta. Okay. Now how will be your IA current? IA current will be 90 degrees lagging with respect to EA. Why? Because since we are assuming it is a short circuit fault, most of the short circuit currents are inductive. So your IA will be 90 degrees lagging with respect to EA. Okay. Now what is the IF1? IF1 and IA have same direction as well as same polarity, because the IA current is flowing in the same direction and it is the same current that is flowing through the bus bar A. So I can treat this IA as equals to IF2. IF2. Understand? Okay. Now the voltage at bus A will be how much? The voltage at bus A will be EA at an angle delta minus this fault current, whatever it is flowing, IF2 into whatever the reactance of this portion. Whatever the reactance of this portion. So if you substitute that reactance value, you are going to get your VA value as, this is your VA, voltage at the bus bar A. Understand? So why there is a drop? The drop is because of the drop in this portion, voltage drop in this portion. Okay. So now what is the angle between your VA is nothing but VF2, voltage at bus bar A is VF2. So what is the angle between VF2 and IF2 in this case? In this case, IF2 lags VF2. IF2 lags VF2. Okay. The current at the bus bar is lagging the voltage at the bus bar A when the fault is occurring at point F2. When the fault is occurring at point F2. Understand? He's simply testing whether you have understood your phasor diagrams or not. Now, if the fault is occurring at F1, it is a critical case. So if the fault occurs at F1, tell me how the fault current will flow. The fault current from this one will be flowing like this. The fault current from source 1 will be flowing directly into this one. Now the fault current from source 2 will be flowing in this fashion. Okay. So the two fault currents from two sources will be flowing in this fashion if the short circuit occurs at F1. Okay. Now you see what is the current. Let this current that is coming from the source is IB. Let this current we call it as IB. Now tell me what is the direction in which the current is flowing through bus bar A. Through bus bar A, the actual fault current is flowing in this direction, whereas the designated current is opposite. Designated current is opposite. Now if you draw the phasor diagram, if you draw this is EB, let us call this is EB at an angle 0. How will be IB? IB will be lagging EB by 90 degrees. Because inductive current, fault currents are inductive, they lag the voltage by approximately 90 degrees. What is the direction of IB and IF1 opposite? So your IF1 will be how? Your IF1 will be, the magnitude is same but the direction is opposite. So your IF1 will be like this. Okay, your VF1, the voltage at this point will be how much? It will be very small because here the voltage is 0. At short circuited point the voltage is 0. So here only this drop is VF1. So it will be very small. Your VF1 will be in phase with VB, but it will be very small. Now if you can correlate the angle between VF1 and IF1, what this one? Here IF1 leads VF1. IF1 leads VF1. Understand? So which is the right option? Option C is the right option. VF1 lags IF1 and VF2 leads IF2. The first thing which I want to tell you is that if you go to the first case, the fault is occurring at the middle of the line. That means he is asking what is the angle between the voltage and current at bus bar. Okay. See, remember one point. If the fault is occurring ahead of the bus bar, if the fault is occurring ahead of the bus bar, that means after the bus bar. If the fault is occurring after the bus bar, then the bus bar voltage leads the bus bar current. The bus bar voltage will lead the bus bar current. What is short circuit fault? If short circuit fault occurs ahead of bus bar, ahead means after bus bar, then bus bar voltage leads bus bar current by approximately 90 degrees. So in this case, for the fault at F2, with this technique, how you can write? VF2 leads IF2. Okay, because he is asking the bus bar voltage and current phasor relationship. Since the fault is short circuit fault is occurring after the bus bar or ahead of bus bar, you can directly write the bus bar voltage leads the bus bar current. Okay, the second point is if short circuit fault occurs before bus bar, or other word is ahead behind bus bar, then bus bar voltage bus bar voltage lags bus bar current by approximately 90 degrees. So in the first case, if the short circuit fault is occurring at F1, that means it is occurring behind the bus bar. Now this bus bar voltage and this bus bar current, the relationship will be like this. Why? Because the designated current direction and actual current direction are 180 degrees out of phase, or 180 degree out of phase. So in this case, the bus bar voltage lags the bus bar current by 90 degrees. If you He gave the power system network, he gave the phasor diagram, and he is asking what is the fault location. What is the fault location? Here he has mentioned this is bus bar 1. Let me put it in another color. This is bus bar 1. This is bus bar 2. And what is the bus bar 1 voltage? V1. What is the bus bar 1 current? In this direction I1 and I2. Here in this direction I3 and I4. The bus bar voltage is V2. He has given the phasor diagram. He has given the currents and voltages of bus bar 1 and 2. He is asking you to find out what is the fault location. What is the fault location? Apply the same technique, you will get the answer. First you see, had the fault occurred at Q, location Q. Suppose let us assume the fault at location Q. If had it occurred, then where the fault is occurring? Ahead of bus bar 1. Ahead of bus bar 1. So what should be the case? I1 should lag V1 by approximately 90 degrees. I1 should lag V1 by how much? 90 degrees. Am I right or wrong?
Yes, sir.
So check the diagram. I1 is lagging V1 by 90 degrees. That is true. One condition is true. Okay. Second condition. I2 should also lag V1 by 90 degrees. I2 should also, sorry. Okay, that let us not go into this I2. What about the V2 and I3? V2 should lag, V2 should lag I3 by 90 degrees. So V2 sorry. Okay. Yeah. If you see from the bus bar 2 perspective, where the fault is occurring ahead of bus bar, not behind bus bar, ahead of bus bar. So V2 should lead I3 by 90 degrees. V2 should lead I3 by 90 degrees. This condition is also satisfied. Okay. Similarly, what about the I4? Since if the fault occurs at location Q, this fault current will flow like this, this fault current will flow like this, and this total fault current coming from this end, it should flow like this. Okay, let me put it in other color. So the fault current coming from this portion, it will flow like this. Okay. So now your I4 and I2 magnitudes are same, but the current direction should be exactly opposite. Why? Because the assigned directions are opposite. So here I2 and I4 are same magnitude but exactly opposite. Okay. So all the conditions are satisfying. So answer Q is the right option. Q is the right option. Fault is occurring at location Q. If you check for any other condition, some condition will fail. Some condition will fail. Okay. So here, let us assume the fault is at P. If the three-phase short circuit is occurring at P. Okay. So in this case, what should be the polarity of V1 and I1? What should be the phase angle between V1 and I1? since the fault is occurring behind the bus bar, V1 should lag I1 by 90 degrees. And even V1 should lag I2 by 90 degrees. Since here in this case, V1 is leading both I1 and I3 by 90 degrees. So we can eliminate this condition. Fault is not at P. Fault is not at P. Why? Because had the fault occurred at P, both I1 and I2 should lead V1 by approximately 90 degrees. Again, if you check for R, had the fault occurred at R, short circuit fault, then how the fault currents will flow? This current will flow like this, this current will flow like this, and the other current that is coming, this will flow like this. Okay, so in this case what should happen? I3 and I1 should have same magnitude but opposite 180 degrees phase shift, which is not happening. I3 and I1 are almost in phase, so even the fault is not occurring at R. Similarly for S, like this, if you put those points in all the four options, you will conclude that the fault occurs at a location Q. Have some patience, simulate the fault at each location, draw the fault currents and check the angles with respective busbar voltages. Then you will conclude the option Q is the right option. Then you have to understand the earlier problem's philosophy, then only you can approach and understand this question. Okay, you try a question that has been asked in GATE 2007. It's a linked answer question for 6 marks. Okay. Here what he's telling is that VS1, this is one generator, this is one more generator. Both the generators are connected by a transmission. Both identical generators are connected by a transmission line. The transmission line impedance is ZL. Exactly in the middle of the transmission line, a three-phase short circuit fault occurred. Exactly in the middle of the transmission line, a three-phase short circuit fault is occurring. Okay. Now, then in this case, what will happen? Some current, exactly half of the fault current is contributed by source 1 and remaining half of the fault current is contributed by source 2. Why? Because the sources are identical, they are connected by a transmission line. Exactly at the midpoint of transmission line, a three-phase short circuit fault is occurring. So both the sources will react in an identical fashion to the fault. So whatever the fault current contributions will be, the total fault current is contributed half from the source 1, half from the source 2. Okay, now he is asking the initial fault current that is flowing through bus bar X, the initial fault current that is flowing through the bus bar X has the waveform corresponding to phase A fault current from bus X reveals that a decaying DC offset current which is negative in magnitude and its maximum initial value assume. Okay, so here the fault current that is flowing from phase A at the instant when the fault occurs is negative, the DC offset component is negative and maximum, then determine the instant at which the fault occurred. There are two identical generators that are connected by a transmission line. Exactly in the middle of the transmission line, a three-phase short circuit fault occurred. Okay. Now, phase A will contribute some fault current. phase B will carry the fault current, phase C will carry the fault current, and of course all of them will be same in magnitude, but their angles will change by 120 degrees. That we all know. Okay. Now the fault current that is flowing from in phase A has DC offset component. DC offset component means transient component. This transient component when fault occurred is negative and maximum, then compute the instant at which the fault occurred. That is the question. That is the question. Okay, very typical question. Already if you have studied our fault analysis lecture 1, where we explained the DC offset current, you can correlate with this question. You can correlate with this question. Again, I'm explaining here what is the waveform. The reference voltage for phase A he has given as Vm cos omega t. Vm cos omega t. The source 1 and source 2 impedances are same, and line impedance is this much. Okay, base MVA, base voltage is given. Okay, let us draw this diagram. I am drawing the phase A diagram. Phase A fault impedance diagram. Okay, I am not drawing the full diagram because we are only interested in the current flowing through bus bar X. Okay, so in this case, how it will become? First, we have a source, then we have source impedance, then this is bus bar X, then we have half of the line impedance, only half, because this is the fault point. Okay, so this fault is occurring, fault occurs means short circuit is occurring at, let us say, t equal to T0. That's what is given in the problem. So what is the value of this voltage? Vm cos omega t. This impedance value is resistance value I am drawing 0.001 plus j 0.01. So many per unit. This value, half of the line impedance will become how much? The total line impedance is this one. Half of this one will become 0.003 plus j 0.03 is the line impedance. Half of the line impedance. And fault, short circuit fault is occurring at t equal to T0. T equal to T0. So here let this current is I of t. Okay, if you apply KVL, what you are going to get? Vm cos omega t is equals to, what is the total resistance value? Total resistance value is 0.04. 0.004 into I of t, R into I of t, plus what is the total inductance value? 0.04 into di of t by dt. So for all practical purpose, let us, to make our life easy, let us call this as total series resistance and total inductance, RL. Okay, so Vm cos omega t equal to R into I of t plus L into di by dt. So for this first order differential equation, if you compute the solution, your solution contains two parts. Your I of t contains two parts. One is the transient part, which you can call it as a complementary function, and one is the steady state part, which you can call it as a particular integral. Okay, the transient part is called DC offset current. So this value will become some constant k into e power minus R by L into t. Usually they will keep it t. Why they will keep t? They assume that the fault occurred at a t equal to 0. If the fault, that means if your switch is closed at t equal to 0, then you can directly keep t. But gentlemen, if your switch is closed at any time apart from T, then your equation will become T minus T naught. Very, very, very important point. Understand? Because here the switch is closed or the fault is occurred not at T equal to 0. It is occurring at T equal to T naught. So your equation will modify as K into e power minus R by L into T minus T naught. Very, very important point. What is the steady state part? Steady state part is simple. Vm by mod z into cos of omega t plus omega t minus phi, where phi is equals to tan inverse anyone, omega L by R, omega L by R. That is the total fault current that flows immediately when the fault occurs. This part is called transient part, or in power system language we call it as DC offset current, and this part we call it as steady state part or symmetrical short circuit current. Understand? So here why this T minus T naught has come? Because my fault is not occurring at time equal to 0. It is occurring at T equal to T naught. Understood? So if you can bring down the problem to this point, then your problem is solved. Okay. Now you see, when fault occurs, what is the fault current that is flowing? 0. At T equal to T naught minus, just before fault, your I of T is equals to how much? 0. Even at T equal to T naught plus, just after fault, your I of T will be 0, because inductor does not allow sudden changes in the current. So the fault, the current through the power system network or bus bar X, especially in this case, is 0 just before fault and as well as just after fault. So if you substitute T equal to T naught at T equals to T naught, then I of T naught is equals to 0. That is equals to how much? Some constant into e power T naught minus T naught plus Vm by mod z into cos of omega T naught minus phi, that is equals to 0. So e power 0 will become how much? This term will become 1. So K plus Vm by mod z into cos of omega T naught minus phi is equals to 0, which implies K equal to minus Vm by mod z into cos of omega naught minus phi equal to is this value. So here the DC offset current is negative and maximum. That is a condition. Negative and maximum. The magnitude is negative. That is okay. When it will become maximum? This value will become maximum when cos of omega into T naught minus phi becomes 0. So the condition is, which implies K value is negative and maximum when omega T naught is equals to omega T naught minus phi is equals to 0, which implies T naught is equals to 5 divided by omega. T naught equals to 5 divided by omega. That is the answer. So what is the phi value here? Phi value is how much? Tan inverse omega L by R. So omega L value is directly has given. This is the total resistance and this is the total reactance value. Reactance means omega L value directly has given. So you're going to get tan inverse omega value is 0.04 divided by R value is 0.004. So tan inverse 10 will become 84.28
289.
degrees. Yeah, 84.29 degrees. So what is the omega value as given? Pi into frequency is 50. Okay, but omega value is in radians, so even phi value you have to convert into radians. One value in degree, one value in radians, you cannot divide. So actually to get T naught value in seconds, you have to substitute both the values in radians. 84.29 degrees into, how to convert this into radians, multiplied by pi divided by 180 into 2 pi into frequency is 50. So by this you are going to get the T naught value. Substitute this and get the value.
4.68 milliseconds.
4.68. So that is the first part of the question. He has asked the time interval, time instant at which the fault occurred. That is T naught value we have computed in this fashion. The second questions are easy, where he is asking the RMS value of AC component of fault current Ix will be. So he is asking the symmetrical fault current that flows through the Ix at the instant fault occurs. That means he is not worried about the DC component. So for this problem it's very easy. So again, if I draw the equivalent circuit here, this is the voltage, overall resistance and reactance value in per unit. This is the fault point here. If everything I write in per unit, 100 angle 0, 0.004 plus j 0.04. This is the per unit fault impedance between the source and the fault point. Then if you calculate IF per unit, IF per unit through bus bar X, will become how much? 100 angle 0 divided by 0.004 plus j 0.04. This is the per unit fault current flowing through the bus bar X, that is Ix. This value will be this much. Can someone tell the magnitude of this value? 24.87. Let us not worry about angle. We want only magnitude of the current. So many per unit. 24.87 per unit. Understand? Yes. But he asked the actual value. So we have to multiply with the current base. So IF fault current through bus bar X will be 24.87 per unit into I base. What is the base current value? If you remember, S base divided by root 3 into V base. Base MVA divided by root 3 into line to line voltage base. So S base value, if you go back to the problem, it is 100 MVA, base voltage is 400 kV line to line. 100 divided by root 3 into 400, directly it will come in kiloamperes, multiplied by 24.87. So many kiloamperes is the symmetrical or RMS fault current through bus bar X. So what 3.58.
3.59
kiloampere. 59 kiloampere. This is the second part of the question. Yeah. The third part of the question is that instead of three-phase fault, if a single phase to ground fault occurs on phase A at point F, that means at the same point, instead of three-phase fault, if a single line to ground fault occurs with a zero fault impedance, then the RMS value of AC component of fault current again flowing through the bus bar axis. Okay, here he has given for this point. If you again go back to the question, assume if you can see the last two lines of this question, assume the negative sequence and positive sequence impedances are same and zero sequence impedance is 3 times positive sequence impedance. impedance. Understand? So what he is telling is that with these assumptions, you calculate the fault current flowing through bus bar X if a single line to ground fault occurs at the fault point. That means this is the generator one which we have drawn. This is a line, okay, and this is again an identical generator. Here instead exactly at the middle, now you assume in an LG fault. This is bus bar X and Y. Now tell me how much LG fault current will flow through the bus bar X. That is the question. So the per unit fault current for LG fault is 3 into 1 at an angle 0 divided by positive sequence impedance plus negative sequence impedance plus 0 sequence impedance, which we know. Here he is asking you to treat Z positive sequence impedance and negative sequence impedance seen by the fault point or seam, and the 0 sequence impedance is 3 times that of this one. So I can directly write this as 3 into Z1 equivalent plus Z1 equivalent plus 3 times Z1 equivalent. Okay, so this will become 3 divided by 5 into 1 divided by Z1 equivalent. So many per unit value. Okay, this is the per unit fault current when a single line to ground fault occurs flowing through bus bar X. So already 3 by 5 into, we have already computed 1 by Z1 equivalent in the previous question. 1 by Z1 equivalent is 24.87 per unit. That is 1 by Z1 equivalent is nothing but the 3-phase short circuit fault current. So if you substitute that value here, you're going to get 24.87 per unit. You're going to get the
14.93, sir.
the per unit RMS fault current that flows through when a single line to ground fault occurs. Very, very typical question. There's one more typical question. 3 identical star connected resistors of 1 per unit. J is not there, it's a printing mistake. 3 identical star connected resistors of 1 per unit are connected to a unbalanced 3-phase supply. Unbalanced 3-phase supply. The load neutral is isolated. The symmetrical components of line voltages in per unit calculations or with respective base values, the phase to neutral sequence voltages are given. Identical resistors, star connected resistors, are connected to a 3-phase source which is unbalanced. Okay, so here the load neutral is isolated. The sources are unbalanced. But what are these voltages? This voltage is VAN. This voltage is VBN. This voltage is VCN. With respect to this one, this voltage is VCN. That means the phase to neutral voltages of the 3 phases are VAN, VBN and VCN. The loads are balanced. That is 1 per unit, 1 per unit and 1 per unit. Okay. Now, since my voltages are unbalanced, since my phase voltages are unbalanced, VAN, VBN and VCN, these are unbalanced voltages. Any unbalanced voltages I can split into positive balanced positive sequence voltages. So this is VAN1, VBN, VCN1. Okay. The negative sequence voltages which are balanced again, VAN2, VCN2, VBN2. Because they are negative sequence voltages, the sequence will change. Plus 0 sequence. We are not worried about 0 sequence, but still VA N0, VB N0, VC N0. Okay. Now, the positive sequence line to line voltage is X at an angle theta. The line to line voltage will become how much? So the negative value will be like this. So this is the This is VA-N1 minus VB-N1. So this value will become how much? VAB1. VAB1. VA minus VB1. So, and similarly for the negative sequence voltages, what it's going to become? That means negative sequence line to line voltage we are calculating. VAN2, VCN2, VBN2. Okay. So this value, VB value will be opposite like this. So if we add this phasor sum, this is your VAB2. VAB2. So the positive sequence line to line voltage, the positive sequence line to line voltage is leads the phase voltage by 30 degrees. We all know, because since we deal with the positive sequence voltages, line voltage leads phase voltage by 30 degrees and its magnitude is root 3 times. In case of the positive sequence components. In case of negative sequence components, the line voltage lags the phase voltage by 30 degrees. Again, the magnitude is root 3 times that of the phase voltage. This concept first you should understand. Okay, where when you do with the actual values, here in this question he is calling the positive sequence line to line voltage, positive sequence line to line voltage in per unit is X at an angle theta 1, so many per unit. X at an angle theta 1, so many per unit. Negative sequence line to line voltage in per unit value is calling is Y at an angle theta 2, so many per unit. Okay, now you tell me what is the relationship between the phase voltages and line voltages in case of positive sequence and negative sequence components. That is the question. Okay, here the point is, had he asked in direct voltages, we know that in case of positive sequence voltages, line to line voltage leads the phase to neutral voltage by 30 degrees and its magnitude is root 3 times. In case of negative, exactly opposite will happen. The line to line voltage magnitude is root 3 times, but it lags the phase voltage by 30 degrees. This angle is 30 degrees. Okay. In per unit system, when you convert the actual values in per unit, what is the base voltage you will take for line to line voltage? For line to line voltage, you will take the base voltage also line to line voltage. For phase to neutral voltage, your base value will also be phase to neutral voltages. So there is no root 3 factor in per unit between phase voltages and line voltages. Very, very important point. Very, very important point. There is no root 3 factor in per unit system. Between line to line voltages and phase to neutral voltages. There is no root 3 factor. So since he is telling in per unit, what will be the relationship between the line to line per unit values and phase to neutral per unit values? That is a question. If you go back to the question, one phase to neutral positive sequence voltage, X value is what? Line to line positive sequence voltage. Yes, the right relationship. Now, now you have understood X and Y, what is the right relation? That is the question. In two options, he has considered root 3, which is an absurd. In per unit system, there is no root 3 factor. If you don't understand, I'll explain little later. First, you go by this one. Here, line voltage leads phase voltage by 30. So, phase voltage will be line voltage minus 30 degrees. So, B is the right option. B is the right option. In case of negative sequence phase to neutral voltage, it lags the line voltage by 30 degree. it leads by 30 degrees, phase voltage leads. So B is the right option. B is the right option. Understand? So why there is no root 3 factor? Suppose the line to line voltage of generator is 10.9 kV. Base voltage is 11 kV. What is its per unit value? 10.9 divided by 11. You will get this per unit value. Line to line per unit value. When you calculate the phase to neutral per unit value, what will happen? When you calculate phase to neutral per unit value for the same, it will become 10.9 divided by root 3 is the actual phase to neutral value. 11 kV divided by root 3 is the actual base value. So this root 3 will cancel. So you're going to get the same value. That means there is no root 3 factor when you between the phase to neutral voltages and line to line voltages in per unit system. The per unit line voltage is also same. The per unit phase voltage is also same. That is the crux. He is testing all these ingredients. That means whether you know the positive sequence network line to line voltages, how they are differing from phase to neutral voltages, negative sequence line to line voltages, how they are differing from phase to neutral voltages. And more importantly, even after getting that, you may fall here. You may fall in this pitfall by root 3. Since he is telling it in per unit, so you have to ignore that root 3 factor. So considering all this, option B is the right option. Option B is the right option.